our breaking news coverage of the war with Iran, 2 U.S. officials say the Pentagon is sending thousands more sailors and Marines to the Middle East. The USS Boxer, with at least 2,200 troops on board, has left from San Diego, and it comes as ballistic missiles were fired at a joint U.S. and U.K. military base in the Indian Ocean. With us now is Jennifer Kavanagh. She is a senior fellow and director of military analysis at Defense Priorities, a foreign policy think tank. Great to see you. Do you believe that latest strike involving U.K. and U.S. military location has now escalated things?
I do think that we're observing escalation here, really on all sides. We saw the ballistic missile strike by Iran. We also had an apparent strike on the Nance nuclear facility, as well as Iran struck the city of Dimona in Israel, which is the location of Israel's nuclear capabilities. The president has indicated that he's sending more U.S. forces to the region, which suggests some kind of plan for a ground operation. And we continue to see escalating strikes on oil infrastructure across the region. So things do seem to be getting increasingly dangerous, and the implications increasingly severe.
The UK is among those countries that had said we don't want to be involved in this, but now do you believe they are considering or looking at the options about changing its mind over time?
Well, I think an increasing number of countries are starting to see their own interests at stake here and are starting to think about what they can do to contribute to efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and to protect their own national interests. However, they're limited really in the capabilities that they can offer. So we've already seen the UK and other countries expand access for the United States to use their bases in more ways. And there's some talk among states in the Gulf as well as the UK of potentially contributing to US and Israeli offensive strikes on Iran. And so that's something that we could see in the next couple of days, which would be yet another escalatory step. But as far as these countries contributing naval capabilities for some kind of effort to forcibly reopen the Strait of Hormuz, I see that as very unlikely, just given the constraints on their capabilities and their historic unwillingness to take on the types of risk that type of operation would involve.
Kharg Island, a lot has been discussed this week about whether the U.S. would take Kharg Island. The President of the United States has expressed an interest in doing so. What would happen if that were to take place, and what does that mean exactly?
Well, that does seem to be one possible option that the Pentagon and the White House are considering, and it's something that the Marines that are on their way to the region could potentially participate in. It's something that they would be trained for, an amphibious type operation. However, it would be very high risk and would likely involve significant U.S. casualties for very low gains. I think the strategy here is that if the United States were able to seize this island, which would significantly reduce Iran's ability to export oil, it would be an economic shock to Iran that would limit its ability to continue fighting. But there's a few problems with that logic. The first is it assumes the U.S. operation will be successful, and there's definitely no guarantee of that. Amphibious operations are very difficult, and even if forces were able to come onto the island, they would be subject to drone attacks and artillery fire. So there's no assurance here that that would be a successful operation. Even if they did that, it would do nothing to reopen the strait forcibly. It's not the right location for that. Right now, Iran's strategy is very low cost. It does not need a lot of revenue to fire a few dozen drones and missiles to keep the strait closed and to keep the pressure on the Gulf states and the United States. So I guess I see this as a very bad option. It has very high risk, high costs, and very little upside potential in my view.
All right, Jennifer Kavanagh, we really appreciate you being with us today. Thank you.